My wife left me and the kids for a younger man, then got pregnant by him. When she came back, my new wife, who is much more beautiful than her, opened the door and handed her a piece of paper. After reading it, she was left speechless. I enjoy my work and we get along well. I practice corporate law as a lawyer for a business that provides accounting and management consulting services. I can set my own hours when I need to, and I make sure I meet my deadlines so that my supervisor isn't inconvenienced. Victoria edits other people's writing from home for a publishing company, where she works most of the time. She can typically choose her own hours, which allows her to spend more time with our 3 children. We have a 5-year-old son and 2 girls aged 8 and 6. We have a 7-year-old son and 2 girls aged 8 and 6. We're just an ordinary family with hectic schedules and lots of kids. We try to do focused activities and enjoy ourselves along the way. We try to go out together as a pair at least twice a month, though we don't always succeed. I had assumed Victoria was content with her life until recently. She worked 60 hours a week, but I thought she was happy. I believed that our relationship was solid. We had a busy bed life, and I made an effort to do small things for her to show her how much I loved and valued her. As a wife and mother, though, everything in our marriage and relationship changed on a date night about a year ago. Victoria started a conversation that would change our lives. Have you ever felt like we're missing something? I don't know. I'm not sure. What are you thinking about? She went on. It seems like we've been stuck in a rut lately. Sweetheart, I'm not sure if you notice it too. How does that routine look to you? She gave an explanation. It seems like we're always working and looking after the kids. We don't really get much alone time. I thought about what she'd said and made a wild guess about where she was going. Would you like to take a vacation? Just the 2 of us. We could go to the Caribbean for some beach and sun, and ask your parents to watch the kids for a week. Both of us could use a little downtime. I was surprised by Victoria. That sounds lovely, honey. But I had another plan. To liven up our lives a bit, I was curious, so I asked, what are you thinking exactly, dear? After a moment, Victoria replied, you remember how we talked about faking intimacy and being able to pull someone up? What if we gave it a go? My heart was pounding. What do you suggest? She pleaded. Please give me a moment to explain. What if we looked at the possibility of being married in public before making any big decisions? We'd take it easy and see if it works. I was taken aback. This was unexpected. I was speechless. Victoria was unwavering. Let's consider it. What if we found other people with whom we could be intimate, sometimes even without romantic obligations, and who were compatible with us? Just think of all the passion and excitement we could rekindle in our relationship and marriage. When I realized I was holding my breath, I asked Victoria what exactly she was proposing. She said she desired intimacy. She gave an explanation, grinning. It wouldn't be dishonest, sweetie. It wouldn't be romantic or like our relationship. It would be informal. Just once in a while, several times a month perhaps, and that's it. How do you feel? I questioned again, stunned. Please allow me to clarify. Do you wish to have a few dates a month with different men? It's not necessary to do it precisely twice a month, though. Depending on our decision, the answer can be more or less. If she'd hit me with a hammer, I'd have been more shocked. I thought about it some more. This lets us both get involved. Of course, we can take part in the thrill together. Think of all the new ways of enjoying mutual pleasure that we haven't discovered yet. Imagine the passion we could feel if we tried something new, Victoria explained. I took a breath. How would we ever start if I agree? Do you already have someone in mind? I'm not sure I'm on board with this. The moment Victoria gave it some thought, we could be intimate without having to do anything. It would happen at a time that doesn't interfere with our family's routines or Tim's. Just as before, we would still be there for one another. Our personal life might even get better, and our family wouldn't be affected. We would feel more connected and passionate together. I knew in my heart that something wasn't right. Victoria is a meticulous planner, and this I had a feeling she'd thought this through a lot. If I agreed, she might even have someone in mind to be intimate with. To be clear, you're suggesting that neither of us has to look for a spouse outside of our marriage. If I'm with another woman, and you're okay with that, you won't be hurt, angry, or jealous. Is that what you're suggesting? I asked, and that's pretty much it. Be honest. How do you feel? Do you think we should give it a go? She asked if I was going to find the truth. I had to go right to the source. Who was this man she wanted to get close to? If I accepted this crazy proposal, when would you like to start? Who is the one you're thinking of? I asked. One indication was evident in her eagerness to get me on board with her strategy. Ian, a man who works at the publishing company, has been requesting lunch with me. Every time I visit the office, he's younger than us and seems to be dating already, based on rumors. She has a thing for a young man named Ian. What are your thoughts? To add some spice to our marriage, are you game for attempting something new? She inquired. I still don't see how our marriage will get any better with you dating someone else. If you're looking for increased intimacy, instead of looking for methods to improve it, why don't we try this? Let's look at ways to improve it together. How can we make our bond stronger? I just want you to understand that this is about us. Think of the new insights we could share with one another, like getting fresh ideas from a consultant. Why not see a therapist together? I don't think it would help our relationship at all if you're having an affair with someone else. I found it tough to let go of the idea of seeing a sex therapist. Honey, I promise this will work out well for both of us. She said, I'd never do anything to harm our marriage. Her persistence was starting to get on my nerves. I don't control you, Victoria. All I can do is share my thoughts on how this might affect our family. Think of it as an adventure we can both go on. Just imagine how much we could learn and grow together. She pushed. Victoria, this isn't a class registration. Are you suggesting that we have sex with a different man? I stared at myself in the mirror and mumbled, good grief. I got up from the table and went to the men's room to splash cold water on my face. I had a feeling she was up to something. She probably decided to ignore my objections and do what she liked. After toweling off, I went back to the table. I'm not sure that Victoria's proposal would strengthen our union. I thought it would make things more difficult. It would make things more difficult for us. Even if we had agreed in advance, we already had too much to handle without adding romantic ties with other people. The fact that I married Victoria with the expectation that we would be exclusive to one another bothered me the most. Marriage means that you have to be faithful and monogamous, or at least that's how I see it. We made a promise to each other in our wedding to be faithful. I was sorry to see that my wife wasn't getting any sexual fulfillment from me. We had a difficult relationship for the next couple of weeks. She kept smiling at me as if I'd accept her proposal. She even made our twice-weekly program more intense for a whole week. Every night when the kids went to bed, she wanted sex. She'd walk me to the bedroom, take my hand, and we'd take a shower together and explore each other with soapy hands. Victoria was she was a woman who wanted more than just a couple of dates a week. She was eager, more eager than I'd seen her in years. She wanted to try different poses that we hadn't done since before having children. Perhaps we'd been stuck, but she was having extramarital affairs to try to improve things. She hadn't brought up the topic of an open marriage, so I assumed maybe she'd forgotten about it. What if she really wanted more sex? I was wrong. Victoria kept asking me out on a date every night after an especially intense session where she had sex with me twice. She mentioned it again, saying, Have you thought about trying what I suggested? An open marriage? To be honest, I kind of hoped that since you were having so much more sex, you'd... She said she'd changed her mind about the whole affair. I agreed that although we've been closer lately, it's essentially been the same every time. We need to mix things up and add more excitement. She said she hoped we could learn that from others. She still wanted an open marriage, which disappointed me. She said she still wanted to interact with other men by keeping us open. I said that I wasn't happy about it. I'm happy with it, but don't be so down. We can develop ourselves and our marriage by trying new things. You're not getting the excitement you want from me, are you? This is a chance for us to reconnect and explore new options. I think it'll make our relationship stronger. I've said it before, Victoria. You're the one who makes decisions. You'll have to follow through if this is what you want, even though I'm not sure. Just be careful when pursuing your goals. Every choice you make has an impact. I'm grateful you'll realize that this is to our mutual advantage. After the talk, it seemed like it was resolved. I went to get a drink and left the room. It was useless for me to try to convince her otherwise, since I knew my marriage was over. Victoria was free to be with other men as she pleased. I had little chance of stopping her, even though everything about this circumstance was wrong. She had to accept the consequences. Victoria quickly scheduled a meeting with Ian at work. 1 month later, they had 2 weekly meetings, even though we had agreed. She started contacting me late after their 4th meeting, saying she shouldn't have driven after drinking wine. I told her to get a cab. Once the kids were in bed, we got together one Saturday to talk about the events of the previous month. Victoria, there are a few things we need to make clear regarding our open marriage arrangement. We ought not to undertake actions that the other person has not consented to or is not comfortable with. What particular items are you referring to? However, for the last 2 weeks you have spent 4 nights with Ian, which was not our agreed nighttime routine. I want you home. I get anxious when you're not around. You should stop notifying me of your destination. Are you simply frustrated that you have to manage the kids' morning routine by yourself? No, it's not about the children. This relates to our agreement and your conduct. Fine, no more stays of the night. What comes next? Maybe we should put our obligations to each other and to our family in writing. But I will. That doesn't seem necessary. We are grown-up adults. I think we can manage this, but I think communication is essential for it to work. I'm concerned when you turn off your phone when you're with someone else. I want to know you're safe. Protection is another issue. Does your spouse use contraceptives? If you're concerned about that, I take birth control. Is Victoria sexually transmitted ill? I'm worried. Has he produced medical documentation proving he is STD-free? I'm sure he's all right, but I never asked. He isn't using any protection. Then is he not using it anymore? Inside you, the question made Victoria flush. Indeed he does. In the unlikely event that we ever have sex again, you might pass on the STD to me if he carried it to you without telling you. Victoria stopped talking. I made up my mind not to have sex with her ever again. Not just now, anyway. You had obligations when you chose not to be in a monogamous marriage. Victoria, we will no longer be having sex. It was necessary to say, nevertheless. What would we say if it wasn't? Children. She showed no concern for our welfare, and I became more and more agitated. I was at a loss for words. Ian, I would like to talk to you. My request surprised Victoria. Why do you want to speak with him? I'd like to talk to him when we meet. I want to be sure he's putting her interests and safety first. To be honest, I was curious to know if Victoria had told him the truth about our arrangement. I wasn't sure if she'd explicitly told Ian that their connection was just platonic and that they had no romantic aspirations. I didn't like how covert Victoria was. I was wondering what she was up to. I had a feeling that he was hoping for something she wouldn't be able to give, similar to love. It's rare to find someone who loves 2 individuals equally. As feelings grow, people usually become less affectionate towards each other. It's a fundamental aspect of humanity. When my wife first mentioned having an open marriage, I felt like I had already lost her. To be honest, I hadn't looked for a spouse on my own until recently. However, observing this new aspect of my spouse made me consider that after 6 months, our marriage was first opened. Victoria has a reliable partner now. Ian was the first. It's a man named Henry. I insisted we meet about 5 months ago. Victoria was against it, which made me even more determined to talk to him about the woman. I went to the publishing company's office one day to try to find him. I knew Victoria would be working from home that day, so I went to the offices. The receptionist showed me Ian's cubicle. He was there, but he looked a bit startled when he saw me. He was about my height, he was in his 20s, with dark hair and a lean physique. He got up to shake my hand after I introduced myself, but he quickly realized I was Victoria's husband and withdrew his hand. I asked him why he'd done that. Hi there, Ian. I'm Will Kennedy, Victoria's husband. We need to speak. Let's meet somewhere quiet so we can talk. We can talk. There are some important things we need to discuss. I motioned for him to come with me, but he did so nervously. I wasn't sure he would, but maybe he thought I was coming to get him. It seems that his view on his marriage to my wife was very different from mine. After settling down, we placed an order for I suggested coffee and a croissant at a local coffee shop. I wanted him to be comfortable enough to talk to me honestly. So, Ian, could you just introduce yourself? Ian seemed nervous, but after asking a few questions, I was able to learn the truth about how he saw his relationship with Victoria and what he expected from her. I eventually learned some surprising details about their genuine relationship by persistently probing them. It seems that Victoria started having sex with Ian about a month before our decision to be married in an open marriage. Ian repeatedly refused to wear protective gear, claiming he was diseased. He said that Victoria was worried about our marital property and that I was unsupportive and that she was thinking about divorcing or splitting up. He also said that I approved of her relationships with other men. Then he asked me if I was angry with him and if I was going to get even. I told him I managed to calm him down a bit, but I told him to always use protection from Victoria. I also said I'd take drastic measures if he didn't obey my orders. Is your girlfriend aware that you were seeing Victoria for sex? My girlfriend is named Victoria. Victoria told me that you were in as well as your other relationship with a girlfriend. You had sex with her when you were still with your previous girlfriend who you split up with months ago. Victoria is my current girlfriend. So this was a clear sign of Victoria's dishonesty towards me regarding her relationship with Ian and her hopes for their future together. She had lied to me and was clearly Victoria and I have different ideas about the future. She was upset with me for meeting Ian a few nights later. What made you visit him? I told her that I'd threatened him and that I was upset. She grinned to herself. Did he tell you that if he wanted to have sex with you, I'd ask that he use protection? Yes, he did. But it's not as much fun that way. Use protection. Why do you keep bringing it up? For God's sake, neither of us has an STD. She was clearly agitated now. I adopted a more responsible stance. I just want to make sure you're safe, honey. He and I had decided to use protection. Did you agree to that after muttering something? Victoria bounded off. It was 2 days before we spoke. When we eventually spoke, she was even more angry. Do you feel satisfied now? Ian and I have decided to call it quits. I'll never see him again. Was that what you wanted when you visited him? My beloved wife, I wanted to make sure you were secure. I didn't want you to run the risk of getting sick. It's also important to me that I protect myself from getting sick. It seems a bit pointless given how long it's been since our last intimate moment. I can't even remember when it was. What happened to the idea that we'd benefit from and deepen our relationship through this open marriage? When will that change? Victoria, she was clearly, I hope this has satisfied you. Now that you know how I feel. It was a very quiet month. We didn't say much to each other, but then everything changed. Victoria said she was going to see someone new. She wore a short top and skirt, and she had on 4. In heels, she had perfect hair and makeup, and I hadn't noticed her new perfume before. She was so kind all of a sudden, for the first time in a long time. She called me sweetheart, and said she was going out to see someone she met online. My mind began to flash warning signs. Okay, where are you heading now? Who are you meeting? I emphasized that she should return home tonight, rather than at 4 midnight. I also told her that she was expected to do so. Things quickly got out of hand. I did, however, manage to find out his name, his job, and the fact that he was divorced. At first, she saw Henry once a week, but a few months in, she was almost living with him. She rarely spends more than 1 or 2 evenings at home per week. I think her partner is a sales representative for a pharmaceutical company. But Victoria keeps things quiet about him. He usually works when she is away. She started acting out, so I relocated her stuff to the spare bedroom. She was surprised, but I told her that having overnight guests would make things easier for me, especially because I'm the one who looks after the kids all the time. Guests would make things easier for me, especially since I'm the one who looks after the kids all the time. It didn't work out the way she thought. Dating someone else didn't spark passion and fire in our marriage. It caused a great deal of drama. I noticed that my frustration with Victoria was becoming more and more difficult to deal with. In fact, I probably should have divorced her a long time ago. I didn't want our children to grow up in a dysfunctional household. Besides, if I did leave, it would mean that the kids would be left with a mother who wasn't around during the night. If I did leave, it would be a difficult time for me. I was unable to fathom her motivations. I didn't understand why she wanted to act this way or why I had allowed it to continue. It didn't work out the way she had hoped that a relationship with a different man would ignite greater passion in our marriage. Instead, it caused a great deal of drama in our lives. Victoria was starting to irritate me more and more. I couldn't face the idea of our children growing up in a broken home, even though I probably should have ended our marriage a long time ago. Even if I did leave, their mother wouldn't be around at night. I was struggling to understand why I put up with it. You're saying I should have done more to stop her behaving like that. You might be right. I was too forgiving of her. She was rarely home, so I ended up doing most of the parenting. The kids could see she was missing. They were always asking why she had to be away from home so much and asking about her nearly every day. At first, I told them she was out with a friend and would be back soon. But they found it hard to believe her because they only saw her 1 or 2 evenings a week. Even my 9-year-old my daughter, asked me why her mom was spending so much time with her friend. It was hard to explain. Victoria started to ignore important tasks that she usually did for the kids. The school called to tell me that Victoria wasn't at the parent-teacher interviews. The day before, which she usually attended, Victoria was typically reliable. However, The vice principal expressed concern and offered to reschedule if there were any problems. When calls were placed to Victoria's phone, voicemail was left, so no one could get through. I said I was sorry to the school and that I would make another appointment. The next day, when I tried to reach Victoria, her phone went straight to voicemail. I left a message asking her to clarify her absence from the meeting and to give me a call back. She ignored it and didn't call for 3 days. I wanted her to go home so we could have a conversation, and she agreed to come in. On Friday afternoon, I was ready to give her a warning, but she called to cancel, saying she had a job commitment. She seemed to be putting things off, probably because of pressure from her partner. Our daughter's birthday was coming up, and it was a big deal. It's pretty standard for parents to throw their kids a birthday party as a way of showing their affection. Kids usually expect friends, cake, ice cream, and presents. My kids were no different, but it's hard to forget when your mom forgets your 10th birthday. I asked Victoria to organize our daughter's birthday party a few weeks ago, but I was told that she would take care of it as time went on, but she didn't, so I took control. I distributed the invitations, bought my daughter a present, reserved a space, and set up the catering. Despite my hopes that she would, Victoria didn't remember. My daughter was upset that her mother wasn't present at her celebration. I made up an excuse about work for Victoria when other parents inquired about her. When she picked up the phone, I gave my daughter the phone. "Mom, it's me. How are you doing?" "Victoria, what's going on?" "Honey, it's my birthday today." I told other parents that Victoria had a work commitment when they asked about her. My daughter took her mother's absence to heart. I contacted Victoria, and when she answered, I gave my daughter the phone. "It's me. How are you doing, Victoria?" "I'm fine, Mom. What's going on?" "It's my birthday today. Why aren't you here?" "We had a party, but you didn't come." The phone was silent. My kid gave me my phone back, thinking her mom had hung up. "Are you still there, Victoria? I heard you crying. What's wrong, Victoria?" "You missed Emma's birthday." The call ended suddenly. A neighbor came up to me and asked about Victoria's well-being. As she hadn't been around much recently, our relationship had been a bit tense. I reached my breaking point that night. It was Victoria's lack of interest in me and our kids that made me decide to move forward with the divorce. We were effectively already leading different lives. The moment came to end the matter when I called Victoria the next day. I assumed her voicemail would come on right away and leave a succinct but urgent message. I asked her to give me a call right back. Alternatively, I invited her over to the house so we could talk. I was surprised that she seemed to pay attention when I used the word. She arrived at our home that evening following supper. "So, what's the issue? Why did you say it was crucial and urgent? Are the children okay?" "Hi, Victoria. I'm happy you're here. We really need to talk. Please have a seat while I'm speaking." She looked at her watch. "Don't worry, it won't take long. What's on your mind?" "The kids have been wondering when you're coming home ever since you left. Victoria, are you going to be coming back? It seems like you've already left us." "I'll be back. I've said that before. I need to spend some time rekindling the intimacy and passion we've lost since I've met that requirement. I'll be back. I'll make a better spouse, and we'll reunite as a family. Just so you know, Emma was really upset the other night when you didn't go to her birthday party. Or the others. The kids have been asking if you'll be there for their birthday too." Victoria was clearly shocked when she found out you'd missed it. "How could you forget your own kids' birthdays? This is the harsh reality for you and your partner, Victoria. I've already made up my mind. I want a divorce." "Why?" "Well, why are you?" "I'm requesting a divorce. I'll be returning home to Victoria shortly. As a wife, you're not doing your part. And I can't fulfill mine either, as you've already left the house. You really shouldn't have left in the first place, for the benefit of our children. I haven't spoken to you about this, but I have my decision made. This is getting out of hand. You barely remember you have kids and responsibilities to them, let alone to me, when you moved out and made your decision months ago. My lawyer says the court will see this as you leaving our kids and our marriage. I love the kids in you, but you don't see that, do you? There's no love in sight, Victoria. There would be no affair if you really loved your husband. Why did you go if you were concerned about us? You moved in with your lover, but why? It's all a joke when we talk about intensifying and introducing passion into our marriage. I won't even bring up our children during this discussion as pointless, because your behavior clearly shows how little you value them. I'm done laughing, but it's a joke. We're going to file for divorce as soon as possible. Get your stuff and go back to him. You're not my wife. I'm not your spouse. I'll go out and find our kids a new mother and wife. But I will. We are married. I'm married to you. You are my spouse. I cherish you. Divorce is not what I desire. I do, in fact, desire a divorce. I investigated it further. The local courts are aware of cases when a spouse has deserted their union. You abandoned our union and our children. Thus, you are to depart from the residence. Henry, I want you gone from here. My statements seemed to surprise Victoria, who packed her bag and left without saying anything. I didn't tell Victoria that I'd started looking for a fun partner while she was with her new boyfriend. I found out that Charlotte was a lady whose husband had left her. She's a younger woman, and she has 2 children. My kids went on a date with her and they loved it. My daughter came down and asked about my date. When I got back, it went pretty well. I had a great time. Charlotte is a really kind person. I really like her. Will she become our new? Oh my goodness, where did that come from? Kids these days know more than I did at their age. Don't worry about it, my love. Also, it was just our first date, so there's no way of knowing if there'll be a second. That was a tough question, Dad. I just let it hang in the air. I'm not sure, but I'm certain of one thing. I'm not planning on leaving. I'll be here for you at all times, and for your brother and sister too. That's something you can rely on. Regards, Father. After giving me a hug, we went back to her room, where I put her to bed. I walked to the kitchen, filled a glass with water, and took a sip. I sat at the counter to think. In essence, my wife had moved away from her family to be with her partner. I had been on a date with a beautiful woman, who I might end up updating in the interim. It had been the most fun night of the year so far. I wanted the intimacy to last, because it had been so wonderful. I was looking for someone to live my life with once more. My thinking warned me to proceed cautiously, though. On Monday, I contacted my divorce attorney to talk about pursuing the case further with the previous financial data in hand. I knew pretty well what getting a divorce from Victoria would cost, and what I'd have to pay her share of the house. I'd have to take money out of my retirement account. I might also have to pay her a small amount of alimony for a few years, but it seemed like a necessary expense at this time. It was time to make some progress. She made it clear that she no longer valued me or her kids, and had no intention of coming back. Please deliver the paperwork, as I have ordered my lawyer to do since she works from home most of the time. It shouldn't be too hard to find her because I have her address. Let's consummate this marriage. 3 days later, there was a knock on the door of Victoria and Henry's apartment. The process server proved she was good at breaking into apartment buildings, so she was the only one around when he knocked. She let herself in through the door. Kennedy, Victoria, you should use this, he said, passing the envelope to her. We've taken care of you. The things he said shocked Victoria. She was aware of what was inside the package. She closed the door slowly and carried the envelope into the kitchen and set it down on the counter. It took her more than an hour to open it. She thought back on her decisions in the previous year. Were those the right choices? When she announced that she wanted to have an affair, did she really think through the consequences? Was Henry really worth her children's lives and her own? Was it enough, even though the intimacy with him was unmatched? Did she really think her spouse was such a dull partner that she had to leave him and her kids? Did she hate her old life so much that she would give it to Henry? These were difficult questions. She opened the envelope carefully and took out the papers. She looked through them slowly, as though she expected them to be bad news. There was a divorce, with allegations of adultery and desertion, as well as a division of wills and marital property, complete custody of the kids with visitation privileges for her, and a 2-year alimony payment. A 1-year alimony payment of, she was paying, a month. And when she finally realized what she'd done, she dropped them on the counter. She was now plagued by the falsehoods and dishonesty she'd told Will during the previous 2 years. She couldn't fool herself into thinking she'd won, or that she could do anything she wanted without Will objecting, or that she could date other men without his approval. Will's cell phone was called right away by Victoria, but it went to voicemail. She wrote him a quick note, asking him to give her a call about some crucial documents she'd received. She then attempted to phone her previous. She was a resident, but nobody answered when she called out. She grabbed her purse and car keys and realized she had to take action to save her marriage. When she got to her house, she found that the garage code had been changed, and her key didn't work in any of the locks. She took a car in. Victoria was told by Will's assistant that he was away all day and aware of her affair. She went back to her old house to wait for Will and the kids to get home from school, but couldn't get hold of him. The kids arrived at around 4, with their babysitter from after school, Victoria was met with a cold welcome, and her oldest child refused to acknowledge her at all, asking, "How come you're here?" While the children ate their food and got to work on their homework, Victoria sat in the dining room and noticed that since her last visit, the decor had changed. There are some new pieces of furniture, new wall decor, and new drapes. Will got home around. Victoria came up to him as soon as he came in the back door. "I'm pleased you're here, honey, and I'm back home. I have some papers that need to be discussed. They were brought to me today." "Fantastic. Did you sign them and bring them with you?" "I sent them to my lawyer. I think what I'm suggesting is reasonable and compliant with the state's divorce and family rules. The children will stay with me, but if you'd like, you are allowed visitor rights. I'm going home tonight. If they're willing to see you, I've come to the conclusion that I need the kids and you back in my life. I really believe that I need another person in my life. All I need is the kids and you. I know I messed up, but I'll make an effort to be a decent mother and wife." "Victoria, slow down. That was your choice when you decided to leave us for Henry. I recall attempting to. I tried to stop you, but you made your decision and you stuck to it. Now you have to face the consequences. You're not welcome here. Henry now owns your house. You're no longer welcome here." Victoria was crying quietly now that you've been gone for a year, so I gave her some tissues to dry her tears. I gave her a few minutes. Before I asked her to calm down, "It seems like it's time for you to go. Please let me spend some time with the children. I'm going to get them." I told the kids their mother was downstairs and wanted to see them before I went upstairs to get them. They were a bit apprehensive at first, but after some convincing and my assurance that they weren't obliged to speak with her, but they eventually agreed. They followed me down to the kitchen, gently, as their mother hadn't been seen in some months. Victoria said, "Hello, kids, I need an embrace from you," grinning at them. They all remained motionless, without even moving to approach their mother. Emma, the eldest, questioned, "Her mom, why did you leave us?" Victoria started crying again. "Kids, I'm heading home. You've all been missed. You have my love. If you love us so much, why did you leave and stay away for so long?" Victoria was shocked by the question. She wanted to enjoy the consequences. She was looking for free sex with men other than her husband, and not worrying about what it would do to her family. But her answer was one she didn't want to admit. She was only concerned with herself, not with her family. It's only now that she knows what she was losing. I stepped in and asked her why she didn't go back upstairs. "Kids, I need to speak privately with your mom right now." Emma led the children out of the kitchen with stern steps. I started after a short pause. I asked if she still believed that leaving us for Henry was the right choice. I wanted to know if she truly believed she could just walk out and come back as if nothing had happened. I waited for a reaction, but all I could hear was her blowing her nose and sniffling. "I've moved on. I guess you didn't realize until you received the divorce documents today. When you saw your family, you came running over here because you were tired of your foolishness, but all you got was sniffles and quiet. You gathered any possessions you hadn't taken with you yet. I've put everything I could find into boxes in the garage. You should be able to handle it if you need help with anything else. Henry is there to help. Just let me know if there's anything you want to take aside from the children and me." I said something after waiting a minute. "Victoria's probably ready for you to leave. There's nothing more to say. I'm not looking to see you again. And the kids aren't excited about your return. If you want to come back, it's better that you return to Henry. We can handle the finer points. Have your lawyer evaluate the divorce paperwork." I got up and went to the front door, opened it, and gave her the all clear to go. She looked defeated, picked up her luggage and left. I closed the door behind her and let out a long sigh. My attorney scheduled our last appointment to sign the divorce papers. 3 months later, we worked out the parameters of the children's visits, deciding that they shouldn't be forced to see their mother against their will. Grandparents would first oversee their visits. If everything went well, there might be a chance for unsupervised visits in the future. It was up to the kids whether they wanted to visit their mother or not. They actually had a few visits, which surprised me. But they felt uneasy around Henry, so they decided not to go again. They seemed to have a keen sense of morality. We spent more time together, getting together 2 or 3 times a week. My friendship with Charlotte developed. We also developed a friendship. I think we should do more than just have physical contact. I suggest going on trips with our children. I was excited for her daughters to meet because they were about the same age as my youngest kids. It was a successful first time visiting the zoo and then getting pizza. The children got along great. This signaled the change in our relationship from casual to committed dating. However, after a year, my life has changed a lot over the past year. I'm now a year older and have gained a lot of experience. Charlotte and I now live together with our 5 children. It's not easy, but we manage. Fortunately, we have enough space for all of us, and we get by well with 2 of the daughters sharing a room. We've grown close. Charlotte and I got married not long after our families were combined. Our beach wedding in the Dominican Republic was a small-scale event conducted by a friend who is a judge. It was a great day, and we make sure to set aside a date night to spend quality time together every week. We also place a high priority on communication, regardless of the subject. We believe that keeping lines of communication open is essential, and we've found that it's been beneficial for us. For example, one evening during supper, the kids told us they wanted to go camping, so we picked up some gear and tried it out at a state park. It was a great experience for all of us. On a few occasions, the marshmallows caught fire, which made the bonfire and marshmallow roasting a big hit. When I saw a ball of fire heading straight for my head, I ducked to escape the sticky, blazing mess. 4 girls and 1 boy playing with flaming marshmallows couldn't stop laughing. I decided to adopt Charlotte's 2 daughters so that our family would have the same last name. About a month ago, this made things easier for us on our typical date night. Charlotte surprised me once more. She is an incredible woman who makes me incredibly happy every single day. When we ordered dinner that night, I saw she had chosen water over her usual glass of wine, which wasn't much on its own. She produced a little white plastic stick from her handbag. She gave it to me with a smile, saying, "You should take a look at this, sweetie." I was surprised to see that she was carrying a child. I've been married for less than a year, and my wife and I already have 5. We already have 4 children together, and we are expecting our 5th. We had a lot on our plate getting ready for the new family member. The news that Charlotte was having twins caught us off guard. We will now have 7 children in total. Luckily, I was just promoted to management of the company's legal department with my higher pay, and I'll be able to cover the costs of raising a larger family and even put money aside for their education, so that we can take some summer vacations as a growing family. We bought a lakefront cottage, a couple of hours' drive from our house, to accommodate our growing and active brood. We have begun rebuilding and expanding it. When I go back, I see how lucky I am. In just 2 years, I found myself beginning again after a disastrous marriage. What appeared to be a difficult time for my kids and me at first turned out to be a blessing in disguise. When Victoria moved on to someone else, it all worked out perfectly. I met Charlotte, a lovely woman who cherished my children and myself. With a big family, there's a lot to organize. I was thankful every morning for my good fortune in meeting Charlotte and her daughters. Now that we had 2 additional kids, our family felt whole. Our family was joyful and our kids got along well. In addition, my wife had breathtaking beauty. Victoria's life unfolded according to its own path. After our divorce, she and Henry's relationship didn't survive very long. Henry soon left Victoria for another lady. Perhaps he was chasing married women. He enticed her husband to leave after moving into a comfortable 1-bedroom apartment. Victoria kept up her job as a book editor. I didn't know anything about her life other than that she was dating someone. I thought I saw Victoria with the kids when Charlotte and I were out. The older children held the younger one's hands as we walked together. We didn't stop to talk to her. I could feel her watching us go by. Maybe she was thinking about how things might have turned out differently. Or perhaps she was relieved that she was no longer in charge of a husband and kids. It's not easy to say.